Hello, welcome. I'm going to be going over abominations and abomination, plural and singular. If you go to the description below, there should be a link to this PDF you see here. And as usual, you certainly have my permission to download as well. So, and when you open up the link below, it's actually off my Google Drive. So yeah, so this here, this is sort of the hub to a lot of my PDFs. And so this here, what I have in this channel are interactive PDFs, which allows you to click on links that are to videos or websites or to other or to passages or to other PDFs. Um, so yeah, so we're going to be focusing on abomination and abominations. So important that we pay attention to grammar. I find the large majority of Christians today, they just ignore the grammar. And if your theology does not fit the grammar of the scripture, the chances are your view is not in line with scripture. Um, so anyway, we'll just go dive right in. And so verse 26, and after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, not for himself, and the people of the prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. Never shall be with a flood until the end of the war, desolation is determined. And he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. In the midst of the week shall cause sacrifice oblation to cease, offerings as well. And for the overspreading abominations, plural, he shall make it desolate, even till the consummation, and that determined should be poured on the desolate. Okay, so yeah, so there's a plural and then there's a singular. Okay, I overlooked the singular here. So abominations, he shall make it desolate. So there are basically two things going on here. So you have the cutting off the Messiah, which is the perfect sacrifice, and after that, the sacrifices, the animal sacrifice take place after that are considered an abomination. Part of the problem here, the large majority of Christians they read the Bible backwards in terms of chronology, and when we do that, you're not going to get a full, complete picture of what's going on here. So I'm going to try to show us a little bit how they understood it, Jewish people. Um, so I have here Matthew 24, oops, part 1, part 2, alrighty. And this part 1 just goes over what could they be thinking, alright. So all we have to do is just go back to the Old Testament, and that's what's pretty cool about the Bible. You can actually kind of read their mind. Just going back to the Old Testament, what they studied, and then when they're having conversation, use that type of language, you get a pretty good feel. Okay, this is what they were meant by this and that and that. And so a lot of the language that you use in the Hebrew, the literature, it's not meant to be interpreted with literalism. And unfortunately, the large majority of Christians today are just not trained to understand that. So hey, this is Hebraic, this is Old Covenant language, and so there's a lot of people interpreting with literalism today. You know, so here I have abomination. Alrighty, so it's false worship. So I'll just click on the first one here, Deuteronomy 7:25. Graven image of their gods, you are to burn with fire. You should not covet the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it for yourselves, or you will be snared by it. For it is an abomination to the Lord your God. Okay, so it's false worship. Alrighty, that's one example there. We go to another. Deuteronomy 27:15. Cursed man who makes an idol or molten image, an abomination to the Lord. The work of hands of craftsman sets it up in secret. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. All right, another one. And then profanity, Leviticus. So if any of the flesh sacrifice of peace offering should ever be eaten on the third day, he who offers it should not be accepted, and it should not be reckoned to his benefit. It shall be an offensive thing, and the person who eats of it should bear its own iniquity. Okay. So it's another example. Let's try a different translation real quick here. So yeah, abomination. So the King James used the word, it shall be an abomination. So he used the word abomination there. So and then another one. Oh, wait a minute. Deuteronomy 17:1. Okay. We have to fix that. Alrighty. So should not sacrifice the Lord your God, any ox, sheep, which is blemish, or any defect for the detestable thing to your Lord your God. Let's go to King James again. Alright. So for that an abomination to the Lord your God. Okay. So you kind of get an idea here that it's just false worship. Okay. Um, so this kind of gives you a hint right here. I mean, this is more of a direct. Thou shalt not sacrifice unto the Lord thy God any bullock or sheep wherein is blemish or any. So if it's true that the do not sacrifice any blemish, it's considered abomination. Can you imagine when the perfect sacrifice is made, Jesus died on the cross, how much of an abomination that would be? Okay, that's the issue here. Alrighty. So anyway, so I'm gonna fix that. Um, yeah. So hopefully you understand what abomination is, the background. So when we talk about abomination that causes desolation, you got the false worship, all right, profanity worship, and that comes with a judgment. They're basically intertwined together. So you do false worship, it results in judgment. Alrighty. So that's the idea here. So if we go to for a day equal to year chart, not that we're going to get into that much, but so we need to understand the Jewish background here. They would now this is the week of the actual crucifixion, but let's back up a little bit here. Um, they would take on the 10th of the month. They would take a lamb, and they would test the lamb. Okay, it should be without blemish already, and keep it until the 4th day of the month. Okay, so it goes through a 4-day process of testing the lamb. So 4 12-hour days and 3 12-hour nights. So it goes through the process, and then the high priest will take the lamb and present it, and so it has to be approval by the priest whether they're going to eat or not. And then they would eat on that day, just feed a feast on unleavened bread. So it would be on the 14th, and then it would go right. And this is 6 p.m. right here. That's with the Hebraic calendar, 6 p.m. start the next day. Then they would eat and would go into Nisan 15. Alrighty. So that's their history. So now they've been doing this for years and years, every spring, Passover. Alrighty. Now Jesus comes and a perfect sacrifice is made. From this point forward, it's considered an abomination. Alrighty. So that's what this red line represents here. Or I'm sorry, this red line represents right here. Alrighty. So let's zoom in a little bit. So then he shall confirm the covenant of many for 1 week. Alright, and that's Jesus right here. Confirmed the covenant. And confirmed covenant for many. Read that right here. This is the blood of my covenant which is poured out for many. Okay, for the forgiveness of sins. That was to answer Daniel's prayer. Remember Daniel's prayer in Daniel 9:20, pray for the sins of the people. The only person that's capable of doing that is the Messiah himself. Nobody else is capable of doing that. Unfortunately, large majority of Christians have turned Daniel 70 weeks upside down. It's actually a beautiful thing. It's actually a gospel in 4D. Once you get all the timing right, and alrighty. But that I have another video on that. It's called what happened on the last day of the 70th week. There are 2 parts to it if you want to watch it. So anyway, so Jesus' perfect sacrifice now considered an abomination. And so if we continue forward here, it will actually continue off this chart. So it continues over to here, and so it continues on, and finally in August of here, August 66 AD. Okay, here we go. August 66 AD, the cessation of sacrifices stops. Alrighty. So now the countdown begins with the 1335 days, and you take the 1290. This is Daniel 12. Okay, 11 to 13. The purpose of this is so that from the point that stops, they begin to count down when a man stands in the temple of God. Alrighty, so let's just go to that passage. In the time the daily sacrifice should be taken away to August of 66 AD. An abomination that Magdala set up, so that's the singular abomination. Okay, so this is the plural that I'm telling you about. Okay, and this is the singular. Alrighty, so um, yeah, so blessed who waits 1,335 days. So we have 1,335 days, and then we have the 1290. So you split the difference, it's 45 days. So they kept track, and the range here is anywhere from August 1st to August 14th. So that's the best I've been able to do based on all the events that took place. So I was able to get down to a 2-week window. Maybe that might change in the future, but anyway, so 1290 days. They're somewhat keeping an eye out for there's going to be a man who stands in the temple as God. Unfortunately, Josephus was not around. That happened already. But anyway, then the countdown begins once they see it. Okay, I see him standing. And so 45 days later, they flee. Alrighty, and so happens Josephus come back. So he's, you know, one point he was about 56 miles away, and then about 4 miles away, and then he gets to the gates of the city, and then he gets to the within view of the temple, and then so happens he catches them that very day that they're fleeing. So he writes about it in Wards 524 and 525. Alrighty, so they're fleeing the mountains. Alrighty, so this is the plural and this is the singular. Alrighty, of abomination. So this is false worship, and what's fascinating about this, when you read it, what happens, if you remember, Paul wrote that, let's see here, and the God of peace shall bruise or crush Satan under your feet shortly. Okay, he meant it when he said that, shortly. And so, lo and behold, Christ, he used Satan to do his thing. You read that in Second Thessalonians, 2. Alrighty. So let's just look at that real quick. Whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs of lying wonders. Okay, so that takes place about 19 years later after Paul wrote this, and at the temple, and it's interesting. It's just fascinating. And if we go, let me just add on here. Let's talk about a little bit the flood too while we're at it. So we mentioned about the flood. Then it should be with a flood. Okay. Now it's not a literal flood of like water. This is the army that destroyed the Syrian sanctuary. What's so fascinating is that if we go back to here, 30 AD. Now the temple gets destroyed in 70 AD. Okay, but exactly 40 years to the hour, this is what happens. So if you remember, Jesus died in the 9th hour, and then he would in the tomb before 6 p.m. that day. And then the start of the next day begins, that the countdown where the 72 hours death, burial, or his 3-day, 3-night prophecy begins, okay? And so, well, it doesn't begin there. It actually begins before 6 p.m., okay, the time that he's buried, okay? And 72 hours later, he ends up he rises and he ends up folding the napkin, which is a sign he had enough light to see what he's doing. Okay, so it happened before 6:03 p.m. that day. So is about 72 hours. So the level, where do we get 72 hours from? The level of precision that Jesus requires is right here. Okay, Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours in the day?" That's the level of precision that he requires. And when you do everything down to precision level down the hour, things get interesting. But anyway, not to drift off. So Jesus is buried at this point right here. Exactly. Well, you have what's called a feast of unleavened bread. Okay. Well, exactly 40 years later, to the hour on the Hebraic calendar, that's when the seeds began to flood. Exactly right to the hour. I just find that fascinating. So that happens over here. Alrighty. So anyway, Um, so hopefully you get a better insight what abomination is from their perspective. A lot of people will just look at the army itself as abomination, desolation. Now that's the desolation part, but it's the false worship that connects with that. So you have false worship or profanity worship connected to the judgment. Okay, there's a judgment is obviously physical and as well. So when you have the army, that's the physical judgment aspect, where the abomination, that's the false worship, and they go together. They're intertwined as one. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you, because again, when people read the Bible backwards, they're not going to see that what the abomination really mean. What does that entail? People will actually turn physical objects into an abomination. Physical objects are not made in the image of God. They can't do false worship or fan worship. I've had conversations with people that believe that. It's like, wow, that's without reading the Bible backwards instead of going forwards. So anyway, I hope you found this material beneficial, and like I said, you certainly have my permission to use this however you like, and you have an awesome day. Thank you.